The officer's grip on her arm wasn't rough, but it wasn't gentle either. Maya-chun didn't pull away. She'd learned long ago that resistance only made things worse, and she had nothing left to prove. Not here, not anymore. They walked her through the crowded naval base entrance as heads turned and whispers broke like small waves around her. She heard the word fraud twice before they reached the security building, and both times it landed like a fist against her sternum. She had been standing near the memorial wall. That was all? Standing, reading the names, tracing one with her finger like she had done 100 times in her mind. Someone saw the trident pin on her jacket, saw the lean set of her jaw and the way she carried herself like someone who owned silence, and they made a call. 2 junior officers arrived in under 4 minutes. She didn't blame them. They were doing exactly what they were supposed to do. Inside the security office, they asked her to sit. She sat. They asked for identification. She placed it on the table slowly, the way she placed everything, deliberately, without unnecessary motion. The ID was real, her name was real. What they were questioning was the story her body told, the story her clothes tried to shout. A woman. A seal. To most people in that room, those 2 words refused to share the same sentence. The senior officer, a young lieutenant with kind eyes he was trying to harden, leaned forward. "Ma'am, you understand why we have to take this seriously. It wasn't a question." Maya looked at him evenly. "I've been taking things seriously since before you graduated high school," she said, not unkindly. He blinked. She looked back at the wall. The door opened without a knock. Rear Admiral Dennis Holt walked in the way people walk when a room has always been theirs. He was past 60, silver-haired, with the kind of face weathered by decades of decisions that cost something. He glanced at the lieutenant, who stood immediately. Then his eyes moved to Maya, and something shifted in them. Not shock, not quite recognition at first, but a careful narrowing, the look of a man sorting through memory like a filing cabinet in a burning building. He crossed the room in 4 strides and crouched slightly, looking at her left forearm where her sleeve had been rolled back during the documentation process. There was a tattoo there, small, deliberately faded, the kind you pay good money to have softened into something a civilian might overlook. But Holt didn't overlook it. His jaw moved once like he was swallowing something heavy. "That tattoo's real?" he said quietly. He said it to the lieutenant, but his eyes stayed on Maya. The room changed temperature. The tattoo was a coordinates marker encoded in a sequence that meant nothing to anyone who hadn't been inside a particular operation in a coastal region in 2009. Only 11 people knew what those numbers meant. 3 were dead. Maya had been the only woman among them, and she had been the one who got the others out when the exfil collapsed and everything turned to fire and improvisation. She hadn't asked for credit. She'd asked for quiet. The Navy, for reasons partly bureaucratic and partly shameful, had given her exactly that. Holt straightened slowly. He looked at the lieutenant. "Leave us." It wasn't loud, but the room emptied in seconds. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Maya looked at the tattoo on her own arm like it belonged to a younger woman, which in some ways it did. Holt pulled a chair over and sat across from her, no desk between them, which she noticed and appreciated. "You could have told them," he said. "I don't carry documentation," she answered. "I was never supposed to exist on paper," he nodded slowly, the weight of institutional failure settling across his shoulders without protest. He didn't make excuses. She had always respected that about the few honest men she'd met in uniform. They knew when to stop talking and simply carry the guilt. "The name on the wall," he said. "Walsh?" Her throat tightened. She nodded once. Tommy Walsh had been 26. Funny in the way that people who seen too much become funny, sharp and slightly too loud. He died covering her exit. She'd been carrying his name for 15 years like a stone in her chest, smooth from all the handling. "He used to talk about you," Holt said. Said you were the best operator he'd ever worked beside. Without qualification, he paused. I was his uncle. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was sacred. Two people sharing the weight of a name that a wall tried to hold but couldn't. Maya exhaled, long and steady. Outside the window, the base hummed with its ordinary machinery, drills, vehicles, the low rhythm of duty. She had stepped out of that world by choice. folded herself back into invisibility because visibility had always cost more than she could spend. But sitting here now, across from a man carrying the same grief from a different angle, she felt something loosen in her chest. Not healing exactly, but the beginning of being known. She looked at him, and for the first time in many years, she didn't look away.